Captain Zorvan Krell of the Galactic Acquisition Fleet reclined in his command chair, 4 of his 6 appendages tapping impatiently against the armrests. The view screen showed a small blue world, third from its nondescript yellow star. "Remind me again why we're wasting time on this backwater mud sphere?" Krell asked, his voice dripping with disdain. "The hierarchy has taken worlds with far greater resources." First Officer Plex adjusted her optical enhancers. "Intelligence suggests these humans display an unusual degree of physical adaptability, Captain. The hierarchy believes they could serve as valuable labor on Nexus Prime." "Adaptability?" Krell scoffed, the sound making his throat sac puff up briefly. "What's that even supposed to mean? Can they breathe in a vacuum, shrug off radiation storms, or digest toxic waste?" "No, sir," Plex replied with measured patience. "But they can endure a wide range of environments, possess remarkable stamina, and display problem-solving skills that may prove advantageous." "So can a dozen other species we've already conquered," Krell muttered. "Fine, let's just get this over with. Standard acquisition protocol: target a small settlement, collect a sampling of specimens, and assess their usefulness. I want us back in hyperspace before the next cycle rotation." Plex inclined her head, cranial crest flickering in acknowledgement. "Yes, Captain. Scout team is already prepared for deployment." "And Plex," Krell added as a thought struck him, "be sure to take at least 1 juvenile specimen. The hierarchy's scientists are always eager to study development patterns." "Of course, Captain. It's already in the mission parameters." Krell waved a dismissive appendage. "Wonderful. I'll be in my quarters. Notify me when the acquisition team returns." The scout ship purred as it slipped into Earth's atmosphere, cloaking systems ensuring it remained invisible to the crude radar of the natives. Commander Dre, leader of the acquisition squad, surveyed the settlement below through his enhanced viewing portals. "What a quaint little dwelling cluster," he remarked to his team of 4 Vexian soldiers. "Rectangular structures, inefficient layouts, and they still rely on combustion vehicles. Absolutely charming, sir," Lieutenant Quiv cut in. "Sensors show roughly 300 humans in this settlement, mostly adults, but several juveniles as well." "Perfect," Dre said, mandibles clicking with satisfaction. The abduction from Hampton Falls, satisfaction glinted in his eyes. "We'll make this quick. Stun parameters calibrated for human physiology. No damage. The hierarchy wants them intact." The scout ship touched down without a sound at the edge of the small town, concealed by darkness and the shelter of a dense forest. 5 Rexian soldiers disembarked with practiced precision, their dull glinting exoskeletons catching the moonlight. "Split up," Dre ordered. "Each of you cover a different sector, prioritize varied specimens, and remember, we need at least 1 juvenile." He checked the charge on his stun weapon. "Rendezvous here in 30 minutes. Questions?" A chorus of synchronized mandible clicks, Rexian salute, was his only answer before the squad slipped into the slumbering human settlement. Dre moved, soundlessly between dwellings, his 8-legged gait letting him flow over uneven ground. The neural implant at his brainstem translated human language from street signs and scattered papers. "Hampton Falls," he murmured. Such an uninspired name. His scanner pinged, a small dwelling ahead. 2 life signs, 1 adult, 1 juvenile. Perfect. An effortless capture. With practiced ease, Dre bypassed what humans called a security system, a pitifully simple electronic lock, and slipped inside. Darkness filled the interior, but his multifaceted eyes adjusted instantly. He moved through a common space cluttered with primitive furnishings, then ascended a narrow staircase toward the source of the life signs. The first room held the adult, a lone human female sprawled across a large resting platform. Dre raised his stun weapon and released a silent burst of energy. She slumped deeper into unconsciousness, her breathing steady. 1 down, he clicked softly and moved on. In the next room, his scanner confirmed the juvenile target. A small human female, roughly 8 planetary cycles old. She lay curled beneath fabric coverings, clutching a crude stuffed imitation of an Earth mammal. "How precious," Dre said with biting sarcasm. "You've been chosen for the great honor of serving the Rexian hierarchy." He leveled the stun weapon, but paused when her eyes fluttered open. For a fleeting moment, alien and child-locked gazes, the cold, chitin-plated soldier and the wide-eyed human. Her mouth opened to scream, but Dre fired first, dropping her into silence. Moments later, aboard the main ship, Captain Krell gave the acquisition team's haul a disinterested glance. 5 adult humans and 1 juvenile, all unconscious in containment pods. "Only 6 specimens." Commander Dre Krell asked his tone, suggesting he expected better. Dre's mandibles clicked nervously. "We encountered some unexpected resistance, Captain. These humans, while primitive, have surprisingly quick reflexes. 2 of my team were almost detected." Almost detected by pre-space flight arrival at Nexus Prime primitives. How embarrassing that would have been. Krell's sarcasm was cutting. "Well, I suppose 6 will have to do for an initial assessment. Prepare them for stasis. We will deliver them to Nexus Prime for evaluation." "Yes." Captain Dre hesitated. "Sir, about the juvenile specimen." "What about it? What about it?" "There was something unusual. When it saw me, there was no fear. Reaction. Just curiosity. Then calculation. It's probably nothing. But are you developing sentimentality for the livestock, Commander?" Krell interrupted, his throat sac pulsing with amusement. "Next. You will be suggesting we give them names." "No, sir, of course not." Dre straightened his posture. "I will oversee the stasis procedures personally." As Dre departed, First Officer Plex approached the captain. "Sir, should we conduct any preliminary tests before placing the specimens in stasis?" Krell waved dismissively. "Why bother? The scientists on Nexus Prime will do all that. Let's just deliver the cargo and collect our commission. The hierarchy has probably overestimated these humans' usefulness anyway." He turned to the navigation officer. "Set course for Nexus Prime, maximum speed. The sooner we're done with this assignment, the better." 3 weeks later on Nexus Prime, the human specimens were brought out of stasis for evaluation. The massive space station served as the central processing hub for all new species acquired by the Vexian hierarchy, a vast empire spanning multiple star systems, Dr. Zix's chief xeninoiologist observed as the humans were removed from their pods still unconscious. "Assassinating specimens," she remarked, her 6 eyes blinking in sequence as she examined them. "Such inefficient body design, bipedal locomotion, exposed sensory organs, minimal natural defenses. It's a wonder they survived long enough to develop rudimentary technology." Her assistant Trag nodded in agreement. "Preliminary scans show nothing remarkable. Standard carbon-based physiology, average strength for their size, typical endurance parameters." "What about the juvenile?" Zix asked, moving to the smallest containment pod, female approximately 8 planetary cycles according to their development patterns, healthy specimen. Zix peered at the small human child. "The hierarchy specifically requested juvenile subjects for long-term conditioning. This one should be ideal, young enough to be molded but developed enough to perform basic tasks." "Where shall we assign them?" Trag asked, updating his data tablet process. "The adults for heavy labor on the mineral extraction facilities. Zix decided they seem sturdy enough for that. The juvenile," she paused, "considering send her to my personal laboratory. I want to conduct a more thorough evaluation before assignment." "As you wish, Doctor." As the humans were prepared for transport to their respective destinations, no one noticed the juvenile's eyes flickering beneath closed lids or the slight tension in her small body signs that the sedation was wearing off faster than anticipated. Maya woke up confused and terrified. The last thing she remembered was a creature straight out of her nightmares, standing in her bedroom, 8 legs clicking, mandibles and multiple eyes that seemed to glow in the darkness. She'd thought it was a dream at first, until it raised some kind of weapon. Now she found herself in a sterile white room lying on a hard surface that hummed slightly beneath her. The air smelled strange clean, but with an odd metallic tang. She was alone, but a large, transparent wall formed one side of the room, allowing her to see into a corridor beyond. Maya sat up slowly, her head pounding Mom. She called out, her voice sounding small and strange in the unfamiliar Dr. Zix's special interest space. "Hello, is anybody there?" No answer came, but a light above the transparent wall began flashing. Minutes later, a creature entered the corridor. It's not the spider-like thing from her bedroom, but something equally alien, taller with 6 arms and a cluster of eyes at top, a narrow head. Hello, Maya tried again, pressing her hand against the transparent barrier. "Where am I? Where's my mom?" The creature made no response to indicate it understood her. Instead, it tapped something on a panel beside the transparent wall, and a section slid open. It entered her room carrying what looked like scientific instruments. "My name is Maya," she said, backing away. "I want to go home." The creature produced a small device that emitted a series of clicks and whir. Then, to Maya's shock, it spoke in halting English. "I am Dr. Zix. You are property of Rexian. Hierarchy. You will be evaluated for service." "Property?" Maya repeated, a spark of anger cutting through her fear. "I'm not property. I'm a person. Where's my mom? Where are the other people from my town?" The alien. Dr. Zix seemed to consider her outburst with clinical detachment. "Other humans assigned to labor. You young adaptable, special testing required." Maya felt tears welling in her eyes but fought them back. She remembered what her father had taught her before he died last year. When you are scared, Maya, act brave. Eventually, the brave act becomes real courage. "I want to see the others," she demanded, trying to make her voice sound strong. Now Dr. Zix made a strange sound, possibly laughter, though it sounded more like glass breaking. Interesting, juvenile. Shows dominance behavior. The creature made notes on some kind of tablet. Begins now conditioning process. What followed was a series of tests. Physical examinations, cognitive assessments, stress response evaluations. Maya quickly realized that cooperation was her best strategy for now. She needed to understand where she was, what these creatures wanted, and most importantly, how to escape. Days passed in a blur of tests and evaluations. Maya learned that she was on something called Nexus Prime, a massive space station. The creatures Vexians had taken her and 5 others from Hampton Falls as specimens to evaluate humans for slave labor throughout their empire. The adults had been sent to mining facilities. Only Maya remained on the station subject to Dr. Zix's increasingly demanding tests. Remarkable adaptability, Zix commented to an assistant one day, apparently unaware that Maya could understand their conversation. Now, the translation device they used worked both ways, and Maya was learning. Quickly, the juvenile's cognitive abilities exceed our projections. Physical resilience is also noteworthy. "Should we adjust the conditioning protocols?" the assistant asked. "Yes, increase difficulty by 30%. I want to test the limits of human endurance that." Night alone in her cell, Maya curled into a ball and finally allowed herself to cry. But even as tears streamed down her face, her mind was working. The Vexians thought they were conditioning her to be a compliant slave. What they didn't realize was that they were teaching her everything she needed to know about them. Their technology, their habits, their weaknesses. "I'm going to get out of here," she whispered to herself. "And then I'm going to find the others, and then her small hands clenched into fists. And then these aliens are going to be very, very sorry they ever came. To Earth, Captain Krell returned to Nexus Prime. 6 months later, his ship loaded Maya's secret learning with new specimens from another planetary system. As he docked at the massive space station, he received a priority communication from Station Command Captain Krell. The station administrator's voice crackled over the comm system report to Science Section. Immediately upon arrival, Krell's throat sac pulsed with irritation. "What's this about, Administrator? My crew is due for rotation leave. It concerns the human specimens your team acquired. Specifically, the juvenile that was months ago." Krell protested. "Surely you don't need me for... This is not a request, Captain." The administrator interrupted Science Section. Immediately rumbling, Krell made his way through the sprawling station to the Science Section. He was met by a visibly agitated Dr. Zix. See Captain Krell. She greeted him, her normally methodical demeanor replaced by obvious stress. "We have a situation with your human juvenile." My human juvenile. Krell's mandibles clicked in amusement. "I simply delivered the specimens as ordered. Whatever problems you are having with them are hardly my concern. This human is unusual," Zix insisted, leading him through the laboratory complex. "In my 30 cycles as a xenonologist, I have never encountered a species with such rapid adaptation capabilities." "Isn't that exactly what the hierarchy wanted?" Krell asked. "Bored already? Adaptable specimens for the labor force." "You don't understand," Zix hissed, stopping outside an observation room. Look through the viewport. Krell observed a small room where the human juvenile sat cross-legged on the floor. She appeared to be playing with some kind of puzzle cube, her small fingers manipulating the sections with remarkable speed. "So the creature can solve puzzles," Krell remarked. "Hardly worth interrupting my leave." Zix Tapeta command into her datapad. A computer displays subject HJ1's progress metrics. A holographic display appeared, showing a steeply rising curve across multiple parameters. Cognitive development, language acquisition, technical aptitude, physical conditioning. "The juvenile has mastered our language in less than 4 months," Zix explained. "She's solving technical problems designed for advanced Vexian students, and her ability to identify patterns and adapt to new challenges exceeds our highest projections." Krell's attention was finally captured. "Are you suggesting the hierarchy was correct about these humans?" "I'm suggesting," Zix replied carefully, "that we may have significantly underestimated them, particularly their young." Inside the room, the human child looked up, suddenly staring directly at the viewport. Though Krell knew the viewport was designed to be one way, he couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that the small human was looking right at him. Her expression was unnervingly calm, almost calculating. "Has it been properly conditioned for obedience?" Krell asked, an unfamiliar sensation. Something close to unease creeping into his consciousness. Dr. Zix's multiple eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of Rexian distress. "That's part of the situation, Captain. Despite our best conditioning protocols, we have been unable to fully suppress," Captain Krell returns, "the subject's independence. In fact," she hesitated. In fact?" "What, Doctor, in fact?" "I'm beginning to think she's been studying us far more effectively than we have been studying her." Administrator Lox of Nexus Prime was not having a good day. His cranial crest had been flattened against his skull for hours, a sure sign of extreme stress in a Rexian of his rank. "Let me understand this correctly," he said, pacing the length of the conference chamber where Captain Krell and Dr. Zix sat uncomfortably. "You are telling me that a single human juvenile, a creature barely standing at the height of my thorax, represents a potential security?" Concerned Dr. Zix, 6 hands fidgeted nervously. "Administrator, the data is quite clear. Subject HJ1 has demonstrated cognitive adaptation beyond anything we have seen in non-Rexian species. Her learning curve is exponential, so she's smart." Lox dismissed with a wave. Plenty of species have intelligence. We have conquered them all the same. It's more than intelligence, Zix insisted. The human demonstrates strategic thinking, resource manipulation, and most concerning deception. That caught Lux's attention. Deception. Captain Krell, who had been silently hoping to escape this tedious meeting, suddenly found himself interested. What kind of deception? Dr. Zix activated a holographic display. We have been reviewing security footage for the past 2 months. We believe subject HJ1 was progressing through our conditioning protocols, as expected, compliant, focused on assigned tasks, responsive to rewards and punishments. The hologram showed the human child Maya, as she called herself, working diligently at various stations in her laboratory enclosure, following instructions, completing tasks. However, Zix continued. When we cross-referenced her behavior with neural monitoring data, we discovered inconsistencies, though the display split, showing Mia's brain activity alongside her outward behavior. Notice here, Zix pointed outwardly. She appears to struggle with this technical problem, eventually solving it after multiple attempts. But her neural patterns show she understood the solution immediately. She was deliberately performing below her capabilities. Why would it do that? Krell asked, genuinely puzzled to hide her true progress. Zix said gravely, and that's not all. We have documented at least 17 instances where she's manipulated our testing protocols to gain access to information beyond her authorization level. Box's cranial crest flattened even further. What kind of information? Station schematics, communication protocols, security systems. Zix paused, and data on the other human specimens. An uncomfortable silence fell over the chamber administrator. Krell finally, the escape plan begins, spoke. Perhaps we should consider terminating this specimen and acquiring new ones for study. If this juvenile is problematic, no, Locke interrupted. The hierarchy has invested considerable resources in this research. Subject HJ1 represents our most successful human adaptation case. He turned to Dr. Zix's increased security protocols, limit information access, implement more stringent conditioning methods. With respect, Administrator Zix replied, I believe those measures may be ineffective at this point. The human has already a sharp alarm cut through the chamber, causing all 3 Vexians to flinch. Red emergency lights began pulsing across the ceiling. Security breach in science section. An automated voice announced containment failure in Laboratory 7. All personnel implement quarantine. Protocol Sigma 9. Dr. Zix's multiple eyes widened in horror. Laboratory 7. That's where subject HJ1 is kept. Maya had been planning this moment for months. The Rexians thought they were so clever with their tests and their conditioning, but they never considered that every evaluation was an opportunity for her to learn about them. Their technology was advanced, certainly, but followed logical patterns once you understood the basic principles. Their security systems had redundancies, but also predictable weak points. Most importantly, they consistently underestimated her, a mistake humans had been making with children since the beginning of time. Maya had calculated that Captain Krell's return would create the perfect diversion. Dr. Zix would be distracted, reporting to her superiors, leaving only junior researchers to monitor her. She had deliberately underperformed on recent tests, making them believe her cognitive development had plateaued at an acceptable but non-threatening level. No alone in her laboratory enclosure, Maya enacted the plan she had meticulously developed over 147 days of captivity computer. She spoke clearly in the Rexian language she had mastered months ago. Initiate maintenance cycle for environmental systems, authorization, Zix Alpha 47, voice pattern, not recognized. The computer responded. Maya smiled. She had anticipated this reaching beneath her sleeping platform. She removed a small device she had assembled from components pilfered during her playtime sessions, when the Vexians thought she was merely entertaining herself with simple puzzles. She activated the device, holding it to her throat computer. She spoke again, her voice now, perfectly mimicking Dr. Zix's distinctive tonal patterns. Initiate maintenance cycle for environmental systems. Authorization. Zix Alpha 47. Authorization. Accepted environmental systems entering maintenance cycle, but the ventilation systems shut down exactly as Maya had planned. Within minutes, automatic safety protocols would trigger, unlocking her enclosure to prevent oxygen deprivation, but she didn't have minutes to spare. Maya moved to the small access panel near the floor, ostensibly for maintenance drones, but perfectly sized for a human child. She had been loosening its fastenings gradually over weeks, careful to leave it appearing secure. Now, with a firm push, it popped free. Warning, the computer announced atmospheric anomaly detected in laboratory. 7. Maya slipped through the station-wide chaos opening into the maintenance shaft beyond. She had memorized the station schematics during what the Vexians thought were simple spatial recognition tests, but she knew exactly where she needed to go. The alarm sounded just as she secured the panel behind her. Perfect timing. How could this happen? Administrator Locks demanded as the 3 Vexians rushed toward Laboratory 7, joined by security personnel. Unknown Administrator Dr. Zix replied, her voice tight with stress. The environmental systems initiated a maintenance cycle, which should be impossible without proper authorization. Could it be a system malfunction? Krell suggested. The timing seems suspiciously convenient, Zix replied. They arrived at Laboratory 7 to find security officers already attempting to override the locked doors. Report, Locks barked environmental systems are offline. In the containment area, one officer responded, emergency protocols have initiated, but the main door is not responding to override commands. What about the subject? Zix demanded. Internal sensors show no life signs in the primary enclosure. A heavy silence fell over the group. Could the human have perished from oxygen deprivation? Krell asked. Sounding almost hopeful, Dr. Zix was already accessing a control panel. Impossible. The emergency protocols would have activated long before harmful effects could occur. Her multiple eyes widened suddenly. Check the maintenance shafts. Now Maya moved through the station's maintenance network with practiced ease. During recreation periods designed to prevent muscle atrophy, she'd been conditioning her body, preparing. For this moment, the narrow shafts were uncomfortable for the 8-legged Rexians, but perfect for a small, flexible human. Her first objective was the communication hub. From overheard conversations and accidentally accessed data files, Maya had learned that the other humans from Hampton Falls had been sent to a mining facility on an asteroid designated RK-219. Before anything else, she needed to send a message. The communication hub was surprisingly easy to access. Maintenance shafts ran directly beneath it with access points for repair drones. Maya waited, listening carefully until she heard the technicians responding to the security alert in her laboratory. As they rushed out, she emerged from the shaft. The Vexian communication system was complex but logical. Maya had been studying their language and technical interfaces for months. She quickly accessed the terminal fingers. Flying over the alien controls, communication protocol established, the computer announced, destination, mining facility, RK-219. Maya replied in perfect Rexian priority transmission authorization required for external communication. Maya connected her small homemade device to the terminal. It began cycling through authorization code she had collected over months of careful observation. Authorization accepted. Transmission ready. Maya took a deep breath. Message begins. Attention, human captives. This is Maya, Fletcher from Hampton Falls. I am on Nexus Prime Station preparing extraction plan. Be ready in 7 days. Look for system failures as your signal message ends. Transmission complete. Mia allowed herself a brief smile before disconnecting her device and returning to the maintenance shaft. Place 1 complete. The chaos had descended upon Nexus Prime. Reports of malfunctions flooded. The Central Command Center environmental controls activating and deactivating randomly, security doors locking and unlocking. Communication systems experiencing unexplained outages. How is this possible? Administrator Locks demanded, his voice rising to an uncharacteristically high pitch. How can one juvenile human cause this level of disruption? She's not just causing random disruptions. Dr. Zix realized, reviewing the pattern of incidents. She's systematically, the Vrexians' fatal decision, accessing and analyzing our core systems. Each malfunction provides her with more information about how our technology works. Captain Krell, who had been ordered to remain on station until the crisis was resolved, paced nervously. This is absurd. We are the Vexian hierarchy. We have conquered 12 star systems. We cannot be outmaneuvered by a primitive Earth child. Sir, a security officer interrupted, approaching with visible agitation. We have detected an unauthorized transmission to mining facility, RK-219 RK-219. Locks repeated. That's where the other human specimens were sent. Dr. Zix's multiple eyes widened in alarm. She's contacting the others. This isn't just an escape attempt. It's a coordinated rebellion. Impossible, Krell scoffed. The adult specimens are under heavy security, engaged in continuous labor cycles. They have no access to communication systems or control interfaces. You still don't understand what we are dealing with, Zix said quietly. This human child has learned more about our systems in 6 months than most subject species learn in years. She's not just intelligent, she's adaptable in ways we haven't seen before. Administrator Locks, his cranial crest flattened completely against his skull. Lock down all systems. Initiate full security protocols. I want that human found immediately. Maya had anticipated their response. The Vexians were logical, hierarchical, and followed established protocols, predictable. While they frantically searched the main areas of the station, she made her way to the docking bay, where supply ships regularly delivered materials to Nexus Prime. From her hiding place in the maintenance shaft, she watched as the Vexians implemented their security measures. All vessels grounded until further notice. A security officer announced complete scan of all cargo and compartments before departure authorization. Maya smiled. They were focusing on preventing her from leaving, which meant they hadn't yet realized her actual plan. She wasn't trying to escape. Not yet. Moving carefully through the maintenance network, Maya reached her next destination, the station's central power distribution hub. Here she could access the systems controlling energy flow throughout Nexus Prime. The hub was heavily secured, but again the Vrexians had designed it to keep out adult intruders, not a small, nimble human child who could squeeze through drone access ports. Once inside, Maya worked quickly. She wasn't aiming for a total shutdown that would trigger emergency backup systems. Instead, she initiated a series of cascading power fluctuations carefully calibrated to create maximum confusion while avoiding catastrophic failure. Warning. The station's computer announced throughout Nexus Prime power instability. Detected system diagnostic initiated. Maya slipped back into the maintenance shaft as technicians rushed to the hub. By the time they arrived, she was already heading toward her next target, the primary environmental control center, 3 days into what station personnel were now calling the Human Crisis Administrator. Locks called an emergency meeting with his senior staff. This situation has become intolerable, he declared, not bothering to hide his agitation. We have dedicated half our security forces to finding one small human, while the other half struggles to maintain basic station functions. The stealing the ship juvenile is using our own systems against us. Dr. Zix explained. She's created a pattern of failures that keeps our technical teams constantly responding to emergencies, while she stays ahead of security by using maintenance pathways. And why Krell asked pointedly, "Didn't your research team consider the maintenance shafts a security vulnerability because they are barely 40 centimeters in diameter?" Zix retorted no Vexian or any other known sentient species could navigate them effectively. "We didn't anticipate a threat from a creature small enough to use them as